Happy Friday and welcome back to another Riftbound recap. Today we have 6 new spoilers to dive into, and I am very excited about one in particular because it was actually my signature card from back in the Legends of Runeterra days, so it's a bit of a welcome home for me. But there's also one I think is not getting enough love that has some really cool implications about future card design space that we might see. So there's actually 2 cards I'm really excited for, but without further ado, let's dive in. So up first, welcome back War Mother's Call, right? I think this is just the big one that a lot of people are probably the most excited about. This is the card that I took to Masters in the very first Legends of Runeterra ladder. It was the card that it was getting countered everywhere on the ladder, so much Ionia going on, but I just wanted to resolve this effect more than anything. So it's back as Dazzling Aurora, 9 energy, 2 power gear, so it's going to stay in play. At the end of your turn, reveal cards from the top of your main deck until you reveal a unit. Play it, ignoring its cost, and recycle the rest. Now, this is a very exciting card because it does work in spirit with what Volibear wants to be doing. You want to ramp up into some big effects, big spells, like Dazzling Aurora in this case, to be a gear instead of like the War Mother's Call that it's inspired from, or just play big, silly units, right? This now gives us a way to get extra advantage turn over turn the longer that this stays in play. Now, this does come with a downside, right? In the Volibear style of deck, or at least early on with reviews, there are going to be some misses, as it were, that you have to play just to smooth out your deck. Now, we might see a all-in greedy style of ramp deck that forgoes some of those early 5 energy plays that you might want to be doing and relies fully on the Aurora package. But we have to wait and see where some of the other cards might line up, because I'm not totally convinced that there's enough there just yet to rely on the purely high roll casino style, right, of Dazzling Aurora. So I will be very excited to see where this lends itself in a future meta, just because of the potential for this card is certainly very strong, but it's definitely, from at least the more aggressive decks that I've been seeing pop up, one that is going to need a little bit more support before you get the full value off of it. But keep in mind, if we do see a much slower meta, or if things go into more of a controlling style of format, then Dazzling Aurora is suddenly going to shoot up and be like an S tier card because of the value that it provides turn over turn. So for those that are just really big, beefy body enjoyers for the units you can play, or just love playing ramp with really big high roll payoff, then Dazzling Aurora is exactly the card that you've been waiting for. And again, for me personally, welcome back War Mothers. It's so nice to have you. Up next, we have Flurry of Blades, a 1 energy reaction spell. And what's really important to note here is that this, and also the Cannon Barrage, because it's reaction, it can stack with Warwick's ability to get the effect. And what's also really important is with the reaction, also can be used to counter various buff spells for, say, the Victor deck that wants to rely on a bunch of the recruit tokens and then play a combination of buff spells to get them bigger and outside of this range. So Flurry of Blades does have some room in the current card pool. Again, just very nice being in the same options that we have with Warwick, but with Victor definitely looking to be one of the key legends early on, this could just be a very nice tempo card that allows you to hold up 1 and make sure you're conquering that battlefield when your opponent is trying to go all in. So this is a card that, yes, it will be telegraphed to some degree, but your opponent is going to have to respect this at all times if they're a Victor player, because it is a very simple trick that can completely blow them out of the water if they're not ready for it. Now, keep in mind, if you're trying to do something like Darius, where they're going to get the extra might anyways, and you're not going to have a window to do this because all of the units are going to move together and be 2 might before they get onto the battlefield for Flurry of Blades to resolve. But I do expect to see that if we see a very token heavy meta, then Flurry of Blades is definitely going to be a card a lot of people are excited about. Now, again, I think it might end up finding a home anyways, especially if we get to see Warwick really kind of going the distance with it, and because of how prevalent I believe Victor is going to be. But for right now, it is definitely one that is either going to be something that is going to fit into the meta very well or quickly lose its place. So I'm very excited to see where the rest of the spoilers go, so we can really put a more accurate assessment to Flurry of the Blades. Now, one that I'm very excited about, and this might just be because I am super high on set and it's just a good deck so far, is Overwatch Operation, a 5 energy, 2 power action spell that has an insane effect. For each friendly unit, you may spend its buff to ready it, then buff all friendly units. If you watched our set gameplay video, or if you had a chance just to play the set deck in general, you kind of just need an extra way that's going to buff everything. But now what's really important about this is that we can line up turns where we can play a little bit slower of a strategy. Your opponent tries to move everything onto one base and hold it there. You can say, okay, I'm going to retreat everything from my other battlefield that you couldn't conquer, load everything up, and go crash into that other battlefield to make sure I'm either getting that 8th point or getting that last hold that I really need, or maybe it's an important battlefield that they're controlling that you know that they'll be weaker for coming off of it. Now, the one caveat I'll say to this is that at least from the earliest versions of set, getting more than 6 runes does feel a little bit difficult. So you have to be in a board position where all of your threats are well established and you've made the most out of set's legend ability to keep your units around to begin with, because once you play this spell, you're likely going to be out of extra options to do. But I do like this as a kind of memento towards a slightly slower set deck if we get enough other cards to support it, that this can just be a huge blowout turn if your opponent was able to secure both and they might not be ready for like the double active, coming out of your base. We've seen other things like Mistfall that allows us to get our units active, but Overwatch Operation really sets us up nicely to get the most value out of the buff style of play that we've seen from set to, again, active them, make sure they're getting their extra buffs, or just get ready for another big push that you're going to want to be doing. Again, keeping in mind that this is a action spell, so you are able to set up a battlefield defensively as well, buff everything up that they might not be expecting it, then suddenly your yellow set is going to get an insane might boost, right, that has tank. So there are a couple different ways that this card can be used, but again, I think the 5 energy cost is going to make this a little awkward at times, but the potential for this is definitely one that I think it is going to be an auto include in set decks, even if it's only a 1 or 2 of. But this is a card that I'm very looking forward to playtesting and seeing how it resolves in the actual matches. Now, a very interesting one that we got was Twisted Fate. 4 energy, 4 might unit with when I attack, reveal the top rune of your rune deck, then recycle it and do one of the following based on which color you reveal. Red is damage, blue is draw, and shocker, we do have order there as well to stun a enemy unit. So we do not have a combination right now that second, or I should say the third part does work. However, this does lend itself very well to what we can expect maybe in set 2, where we do start to see chaos and order come together. But where does this fit today, right? For red that relies with a Jinx, and the Jinx deck is kind of pretty much stocked to the brim of the options that it has and probably what it wants to be doing. So I don't think it fits there. And so the only other place I'd really give this a home to is Teemo, because we did want another 4 might unit, and now we can fix our runes that were always, not always, but most likely always going to be hitting a blue off the top and having a very low purple cost in our deck, that this is going to be pretty interesting to see how it pays out. Extra draw is always welcome, and we do want more units around the 4 might, early game threshold that we can play. So Twisted Fate does seem like it's going to be a welcome addition. And as we're starting to get more of these cards, or this card and definitely the next one in particular, it really does feel like we're seeing more and more of a heavy control Teemo style of gameplay, which could be really exciting in terms of just more like demure control, again, to use the more magic verbiage there. It does feel like we're getting more of this just like late game heavy control, getting all this extra draw and value packages that, Lux probably takes it still because of her extra draw effect. But I love seeing more of these play options coming online for Teemo, that this is still like my number 1 legend I keep going to. And it's probably just because it's my favorite combination of Mind and Chaos. But I do think just from the amount of unique ways that you can build the deck, Teemo seems to be winning the race, and that's what I am really excited about. But before we get to that big Teemo card, actually, we have one more that we want to talk about with Find Your Center. It is a 3 energy spell, action speed, draw 1 and channel 1 rune exhausted, and it can cost less if your opponent is within 3 points of the victory score. Now, where does this fit, right? It can be a good card if you are playing a deck with Sona, because you're going to have the extra runes available, and just drawing a card and channeling a rune can be really nice and trying to help catch back up. Where doesn't it fit? Well, anywhere in set 1, it feels like it. This is not a card that I'm all that excited about, right? For at least the calm decks that we have right now, when it comes to draw, we always just want to start with Discipline, for example, right? We want to get the extra might. We want a card that's going to recycle itself, so we have that side of it. And if we're trying to draw extra cards, we can just rely on Meditate as well. So this one does find itself in a little bit of an odd spot just in terms of who's going to get the most value out of it. Again, I think from a legend perspective, it's just whoever can get the most value out of Sona that can do something with this. But ultimately, it's not a card that I'm terribly excited about. Maybe I'll change my opinion once we get the full spoiler and we can start to put together more of the calm legends. But at least for right now, this is one that kind of left my head scratching just a little bit because it doesn't really feel like it has a home just yet. But I do like the idea that it can cost less, because if you are playing a slower control deck, then getting to play this for one is going to feel a lot better. But the thing I keep going back to is we have a 40 card deck limit, or 39, I guess, technically. And finding any room for this when we already have all the other spells that we want to play feels like it's going to be a bit difficult. So again, if you're playing Sona already in your deck and getting the extra runes, you can probably find a home for this as well. But for like Leona or Lee Sin, who wants to have the more stun mechanics or self-buffing packages that you're relying on, this one just seems to feel like it's missing just a little bit from wanting to be included. And then last but not least, kind of the Teemo package that I was talking about is Portal Rescue. So 3 energy, 1 power. And also really key note here is that with the TF, it's nice that we can put a blue rune back because we do want to reveal card draw off of TF. Banish a friendly unit, then play it to base, ignoring its cost. So this is one that has so much more potential, and at least for me personally, this is my most exciting card. Like, I love War Mothers, don't get me wrong, but the way that this could line up in set 1 or just future set design in general is going to be super cool. And the best example of this, is going to be Madden Marauder, a unit that says, when you play me, move a unit from a battlefield to its base. So this allows you to set up turns where you are now able to just negate the attack that your opponent was trying to do while also saving one of your cards, right? There are some insane blowout potentials that this card can lean into. Or again, if we just want to do the cheeky, I just need to draw more cards, and yeah, we'll just bounce our Yordle back to base when we really need it, right? There's a lot of things that you can do just in terms of timing with this card that makes it very, very interesting to see how it will ultimately play out. Now, again, at the time of this recording, we do have a ton of other cards to be spoiled yet, and there's not really a lot right now that we can use Portal Rescue on. So I'm assuming that we're going to see at least another mine card in the near future that this could also be a good target for. But for right now, Madden Marauder and the Yordle are like the 2 key picks. And I think those are fine for right now. But again, what does this mean for like set 2 or even set 3? I really love the direction that we're seeing out of mine. And again, I'm biased. I'll admit that up front. I am a control player at heart. But anytime that I get a blink effect, I'm going to be excited for it because I loved playing Restoration Angel in Magic the Gathering in the standard format. It was legal. So anytime I see a blink effect, I'm very excited to welcome it back into a format. So that wraps up our Riftbound recap for this week. Definitely let me know in the comments below, what is your favorite card from this list? Again, welcome back, War Mothers. That obviously just hits a sentimental note for me. But in terms of new cards, I got to give it to Portal Rescue. I do think this is going to be absolutely insane, at least potentially insane, to see where set 1 lines up and how much value we can ultimately get out of this. But with that out of the way, until next time, my friends, stay safe, stay hydrated, and we'll see you in the next video. Cheers.